Hi, this is Arik.
And Aurelia.
And we're here to talk about life and interesting things.
Or so we think. But as always, you can be the judge of that.
Either way, what we have to talk about is
Ageless.
So hey Aurelia, how's it going? I'm happy to be sitting here with you today.
I'm happy too, and I have to say that maybe somebody has noticed, but I changed the words a little bit from our intro so that it's always live and not that we, taped it once and then we just put it in front of what we're saying.
Well, actually, when I'm editing it, I do reuse intros, but because we've been in quarantine, like that intro doesn't really work anymore. Because, we're still kind of in quarantine, but like not really.
Yeah.
So I thought, I want to find a new one, and, because I also have plans to do some marketing and some advertising, and so I want many different takes so I can choose which one I want.
See, guys, and I didn't even know that, and then I was complying. Now, how's that for being married for such a long time?
That's right. So, I want to ask you kind of a silly question, but my first question I have for you on this fine day is, do you have to be spiritual to be spiritual?
That's very funny.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
I would say you have to be not spiritual to be spiritual.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Because I think, like, a lot of times, I'll just speak from my own experience, and, we can, go from there. But, like, I know sometimes before I'm going to see a client, especially, like, a new client, or even long-time clients, like, they get so scared before a chart reading, mostly chart readings, and, like, they're intimidated by it. And I don't know what the reason is. Of course, there are many different reasons, but, like, I'm just I also see that sometimes people are intimidated by quote-unquote spirituality and spiritual teachers and guides. And I just want to demystify that and, like, really set the record straight. Like, that, you shouldn't be spiritual or and I have an idea of spirituality to be spiritual, because it's totally a down-to-earth thing, right?
Yeah, so you walked right into that, because I was holding up all day and I thought I'm not going to say anything, but now you want that. Why do we have a spiritual horoscope this week?
Right. It's interesting.
Thank you.
So you walked right into my intro and I walked right into your question.
Yes.
Well, of course I put that in there so that we could talk on this podcast.
Yes, I believe you, actually.
Because I think on one hand, when people, you have to use words to describe things. So spiritual astrology is different than, like, newspaper astrology or meme astrology or Google astrology. It's, like, my favorite kind of, punching bag sometimes. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you have to, on one hand you have to explain, you have to use the word spiritual to indicate not an emphasis on the material, but then once you're spiritual, it's almost like you shouldn't even use the word anymore.
Yeah, of course, like, you use the word to describe something, or even, like, myself, it's like a self-image, like, it's an identity, a spiritual identity, and that does not really work for being spiritual. But
Yeah.
And in the same way, I don't know, I didn't even know what a spiritual horoscope was.
Yeah, it's kind of like really sometimes just an experiment to see, like, what is converting, because, as you know, my astrology is spiritual. It is asking people to do spiritual work and to figure out how to use their free will to
I
overcome.
know, and you get so many accolades for it, like people who contact you on all different media telling you, that, they really like your take on it because they feel it has this spiritual note to it that, makes them feel so good. And so I was like quite taken aback that when I thought, okay, so now we make this like a thing. Because, people notice that obviously, like from the content.
Right.
Because that's what it's really about. Like you feel it in the energy. And if something is true, then it's also spiritual. There's no way around it because everything here is of spirit.
Yeah, but I guess I wanted the headline to match the body.
Well, yeah, okay.
Like,
and I'm pretty sure that the people who call themselves spiritual, they want the same thing.
Right, like the mask. Yeah, so I guess just like a Gemini gust of unnecessary experimentation, perhaps.
Yeah, I could see that. It's like things that you like to do once in a while to just keep me on my toes.
Definitely.
So no, I noticed. I looked in my inbox and I saw it. So did I pass the test?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for noticing. I mean, I think that's absolutely great.
Thanks.
So then, no to making headlines match the bodies.
No, because if you have to do that, then there is really, I almost want to call it then, it's like almost false advertising.
That's interesting because, I mean, like in most marketing and just like with digital planning and whatnot, like if your head or your presentation doesn't match your content, then that's like false marketing.
But it does because it is a horoscope and I do not know what it was like before. I actually forgot because it wasn't about that. Like I wait at the beginning of the week for Arik in my inbox for my horoscope for the week. And that's what it is, and then the content is highly spiritual, and I love that. And so I think that even the headline, as it contains horoscope of the week of yada yada, matches then what's actually going on. It's not just a label.
But in this case, it's both. It's a label and it's a body. So I guess then it just goes back to the question. Like, I don't understand that.
No, it goes back to that question. Why do I need to label something that is obvious? And why would I call myself spiritual? Like your first question, do I have to be spiritual in order to be spiritual? And I say, no, you have to be not spiritual in order to be spiritual.
Yeah. And why is that?
Because if I put a descriptive on it, then it's too mental. It's not real. Like I remember, when my sister and my brother-in-law opened their house to me to live there after I came back from America, I felt like, oh my God, I do not feel this state of gratitude. I do not feel like, oh my God, I'm so grateful. I didn't once say to my brother-in-law, oh my God, I'm so grateful that you allow me to live here. And then I talked to my sister about it. I said, this is like the weirdest feeling. However, I do know that I have gratitude. I cannot label myself in that way. And then she said, yeah, this is quite normal because we all can feel your gratitude. And this is then when I learned that often labels, they just get in the way of being.
But we need labels too, though. Like, we need to express, what other people might not be able to feel. I mean, there's like a whole industry, like a, brand identity and marketing and, labels. And I mean, I think you need a balance of it.
Yeah, but that, I think, is a different subject than what, we started out to talk about.
How so?
Because spiritual, like that cannot really be described. Can you describe it? I don't think you can.
No.
Exactly. And so then what would that label be like? I mean, how can you use a descriptive for something that cannot be described?
But I mean, you can have pointers. I mean, I see what you're saying, how it gets mental, but you also need like traffic signs, like this is a red light, that's a green light. Like, what it represents is something more than just the light. It represents go, or it represents stop. Like, where this is spiritual and this might be more financial.
But financial is also spiritual. Isn't that where we're coming from, like with that question?
But then stop is also go. I mean, you need labels, like, as you get more into the manifestation realm. You can't just, like, have everything as one taste, I don't think.
Well, but I can't describe stop. Remember, but I thought we agreed upon that spiritual cannot be described, that it's beyond description. And stop, I can describe on many levels. I can describe it like from a visual, where something is not moving, something is stationary after it had been moving, or I can describe it on a physiological level or a neurological level, I'm sure. Like, I can describe stop. And therefore, to put that kind of label onto something that has stopped or is supposed to stop, I think that's valid. But if I'm a quote-unquote spiritual person and call myself spiritual, then I really don't even know what that means.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, like, one is a state of being and the other one is a state of naming.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Names are important, but yeah. I mean,
otherwise we couldn't even talk if we wouldn't have the names.
That's still where I come from, and we don't have to see eye to eye on that, but I do agree with you as far as saying that you shouldn't make it, into a label or something, like, where one becomes mental and the other one becomes, or just is.
Yeah.
But not everybody can feel the gratitude, in most cases. For example, like going back to your example.
Yeah, I know. And I think we probably will not see eye on eye or eye to eye on that. Because I do believe that we all feel it, because this is through the vortexes. I mean, and you'd be the first one to admit that communication happens through the vortexes, or like the chakras, as they're probably better known.
Labels.
More than, yeah, exactly. More than with words.
That's actually an interesting example, because I think, like with the chakras, for example, this is a foreign language describing the vortexes, which did not get really translated. They got popularized as the foreign language. Mm-hmm. But again, it's just labels describing something true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do agree that it occurs on an energy level.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I believe that, there could be a gazillion, let's say, Google horoscopes out there calling themselves spiritual astrology, and the people reading it, they would still know that that's not the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess it's the difference between being mental and being mindful.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really nice, because in order to be mindful, you need to have a state of awareness. And then in order to be aware, you have to be kind of not so mental.
Mm-hmm. So here you have it. You don't have to be spiritual in order to be spiritual.
That's right.
Cool. That sounds good, and I hope it brings some relief to anybody who's been wondering about that, and we can get more into that after this break. This episode of Ageless is brought to you by Aurelia Essential Oils. Wellness for you and everyone around you. Coming soon is our pet collection for kitties and puppies by Aurelia Essential Oils. Stay tuned. All right, we're back, and you've already been blowing my mind with...
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just really amazing, because, at the end of the day, no. Even at the beginning of the day, you don't need to be spiritual in order to be spiritual. And I know a lot of people, they get intimidated by talking to quote-unquote spiritual people. Heck, even I do.
Funny.
Because chances are they're judging the crap out of me. Not that I'm scared of that, but it's like this, like what you were saying, like these self-images.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But where this leads to, that's just a little tangent. This is then, what we call blinded by robes, because then there are so many descriptives on things that can really not be described that, if I wear like a maroon colored robe, then I'm already a holy man, and it doesn't matter how I behave or how my Sangha behaves or what they're doing, I'm wearing this thing, and this is part of the descriptive of being very spiritual, and so here you have it. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Or like a wolf in sheepskin. Because it's really about the essence and not the appearance.
Exactly.
And yeah, like it's about this mentalness. Like,
yeah.
Mentalness is not mindfulness.
No, not at all. Because in mental, that's like that quality that I said, that where I have to use my logic, and where I have to describe things, and where I have to look for a label and create some if they do not exist. Like, this is all mental. But then if I'm mindful, I need awareness for that. I do not need to be mental in order to be mindful.
Whoa, hold on, because I do a lot of brain integration in my healing work, or let's just call it mind integration, but the brain is the hardware, even though mind is everywhere, but whatever. Are you saying awareness is the integration of right brain, left brain, or is it only right brain?
No, that's the integration.
That's amazing.
This is left brain and right brain working together perfectly.
Yeah.
Like as a unified whole. Like, or, you can call it like the left channels and the right channels meet in the central channel, and, there is all good. There is a lot of imagery, a lot of labels for that.
Right. But yeah, like, I think being mental, a lot of us, especially in Western culture, even Northern Hemisphere. I remember when we went to Australia, and we felt right away like really almost like this relief that there's not so much third eye, mental energy. Like
it was amazing.
It's a different energy.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not like you feel like you're walking through a cloud of haze, like you do in the Northwest.
That's right.
Hemisphere.
Yeah,
if there's such a thing.
That's funny because it's like in the brain we call it hemisphere, but we also on Earth we call it hemispheres.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's funny.
Yeah, of course. Yes. So that was really interesting for us. But, I mean, it's like, a lot of us can be very mental with these things. And
I mean, if I can have an example for that, maybe.
Yeah.
So, because let's say what's mental, If now I tell you to describe a rose to me, that is a mental experience. I mean, always saying as a condition that you have ever once seen a rose and experienced a rose. Okay, but then to describe it to me now, that's a mental experience. Now for me, it probably also mental, but it could also be more like I could be imagining it, like it could be more like a creative venture, and I could maybe see the rose as you're describing it, or maybe I just make note of those labels, and then I think, okay, so now I have a clear image of a rose. Like I said, which may or may not be true. For our example, it doesn't matter, because the awareness of a rose would be, like I'm walking outside, and then maybe I have this sensual experience of a smell.
Yeah.
And then I'm aware of the rose.
I don't think people are aware of each other. I think most people are having exactly what you just described with the rose, people are doing with each other.
That's so sad and so true.
Like with the mental labels, or then not having those mental labels and just kind of like creating people what they need to be like to fit. Guess what? My comfort zone.
Yeah.
My reality.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's sad, but...
It's very sad, but the divorce rates tell us that this is true, or even how people are less and less capable to even start relationships. Like how the number of singles just explodes, and then, all they want is like one night stands, and then, yes, they do not have to really relate or being aware of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would think already a divorce would be becoming more aware of the relationship.
Yeah, exactly. and then not liking it, because then you're married and you take a marriage vow, and whether you're aware of that or not does not matter. The marriage vow is setting certain things in motion. Like in the same way, if you put your finger in the outlet, it doesn't matter whether you believe in electricity or you're aware of that. I mean, you're gonna get hit anyhow.
Burned.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get burned. Yeah. So definitely, mindfulness is then that more of that awareness.
Yeah. It's absolutely important. And like the mindfulness is like the awareness that then has kind of a consequence, if I can use that word, because if I just walk around and I smell this amazing smell, but I do not know that this is a rose, or I cannot make that connection, then I'm aware of something that smells good, but not of the rose.
Yeah.
So I had a sensual experience. I was not aware, like I was not like mindful about what was going on.
Yeah, just filling in the blanks.
Yeah.
Like using your toolbox to fit it into, again, what is spiritual or what are you?
Yes.
You know, like in the last episode we talked about you know, that friend that you had and who did that, like, you know, just trying to fit into
what you thought
you were.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting because as you were talking about that, I remember someone once in high school described me, and I mean, I wasn't interested in what they thought I was like, you know, but they said, it always stuck with me. They described me as aware.
Nice.
And I had no idea what it meant. Like, really, at the time, I just thought, like, vigilant or, you know, like, just, what do you mean by that? You know, and just like, no, just really observant and aware of what's going on around you. And, yeah, I mean, if you think about raising awareness, I mean, of course, this is usually has political connotations or, you know, whatever. But I think that I have more understanding now about what that means in light of what you're talking about. Because awareness is something that cannot really be faked. You know, you have to really put all your judgments away. You're being judgmental.
Yeah, nice.
And become mindful and aware and to not just project what you want, even though we want to do that in a way, but we don't want to like have the judgments be projected. I mean, we want to create our reality, but we don't want to.
I'm a little bit still stuck on the judgmental. That was so beautiful. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It could be another podcast.
Yeah. So I have to admit that I was only half aware of what Arik was saying because I was stuck on the beauty of that word. Like, that was new to me. And so my mind, my mental faculties, like, they grabbed onto that and what is this? What does this mean? You know, like trying to put it into a framework of knowns. And so I was very, very busy doing that and probably missing out on something beautiful Arik said. But hey, thank God I can listen to the podcast.
No, I tell you something.
Okay.
I tell you something that the awareness wants to tell you.
Okay.
I mean, being that you represent half of the listeners, chances are you had that awareness that they were also getting stuck on that.
Oh, yeah.
So that, you know, to go back to that is, of course, very important because, you know, yeah, it's true. Being judgmental, being in your head and, like, then having this judgment about it. Having a judgment and is like, okay, but being judgmental is a state of mind.
Yeah. And that was so clear to me right now that, I mean, that doesn't happen often to me, I have to say, or if it does, you know, then usually I have the space to just say, oh, time out, moment, you know, I can't listen, I'm stuck on that, I have to step away, or blah, blah. And so right now I really didn't give myself that opportunity to just say, hey, time out, I'm stuck on that. But now this provided me this amazing experience of seeing like, hey, I missed everything Arik said after that. And I am pretty sure that this happens to a lot of people a lot of the time. And so,
wow, it's so true.
Huh?
It's so true.
Yeah, because then often to me it's like when I talk to people and then I feel like, man, they're totally checked out. I do not even know who am I talking to.
I'm sometimes this person, though. I'm not even kidding. Like, where, like, I've even caught myself where I thought I totally understood what the dialogue was saying, but then, or even like with reading, I'd be like, no, they didn't say that, and I go back and I read it, and I'm like, holy Shinto. I was wrong.
You
like,
made it all up.
No, or I didn't read it. And like, yeah, I made it up that it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I can totally attest to that as well. Like, that's being judgmental.
Yeah. I think that's what that is.
And no, you're not present.
Not at all.
Like you're saying, like you're not even there.
Not at all. Not
But
even
the
a
words
little
are not
bit.
lost because they are recorded in that awareness. And you can always go back to that awareness in the same way you guys can go back and listen to this podcast again because it was kind of mind-blowing.
Wow, but that was really beautiful what you just said. That, yeah, this is true. It stays in awareness. Oh my God. Like this energy today, this is really something.
Yeah.
I mean, whoa.
And with that said, we invite you to go back and listen to this episode over again and also our previous episodes where we cover life and interesting things.
Or so we hope, and let you be the judge of it.
And this has been Arik.
And Aurelia.
And you've just listened to a podcast of
Ageless.
Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. See you guys next time. Bye!